Hello. Today, we're going to take a look at working with synthetic transactions in TrueSight Operations Management. This is particularly important for some of the users who have had experience with our previous version of synthetic transaction management. How they're managed in TrueSight is somewhat different than it's been done in the past. So let's get started. You can see that I've logged into my TrueSight Operations console with a credential that is sufficient to do the work we need to do today. And I've landed at my default landing page, which is a list of my various dashboards. To get started, we're going to open up the navigation panel. We're going to go to configuration, and we're going to take a look at synthetic scripts that we do have loaded in our environment. And here you get a list of all the synthetic transactions that are available to be used. Some of them are default that come with a basic installation of TrueSight, things like URL checker, POP3 pinger, things like that. But then there's some other ones that I've created using the Silk Performer workbench. Portfolio lookup is a good example of that. Get quotes is another. These are ones that have been created and then uploaded into the synthetic scripts library. The second thing we can do is take a look at the applications that we have running. And in this particular case, by clicking on applications under configuration, we can see a list of all the applications that we have configured in our TrueSight environment. And if you notice, under the synthetic column, I have two applications where synthetic transaction monitoring is in fact enabled. The others are not using synthetic transactions. Let's take a look at our stock trader application and take a look at what transactions are actually in use. When I click on application configuration, we can see that there are two in fact, get quote and search symbol. They're both active, and get quote is in fact running from two different locations so that we can test the latency from a couple different spots in our environment and get a good picture about how that application is performing. We can also click on the transaction tab. We can see some information about the global SLA applied to this execution. Um, when do we want to see an alert? When do we want to see major and minor, things along those lines? And we can also take a look at the model. And this is an application model, slightly different than a service model, in that it represents specifically the infrastructure components that are supporting this particular application. So let's take a look at the application itself. If we open up the monitoring area, click on applications, again, we get a nice visual status of our applications and how they're running. If we click on our stock trader application, that'll take us to the details for that particular application. And you can see that we have a lot going on here. It's a very powerful screen, does a lot of different things. It gives us information about the various tiers that are supporting this application. But for today, we're very concerned with the synthetic tiers. So we're going to scroll down a little bit, and there we can see our different synthetic transactions and their current status. Right now, the search symbol, it hasn't run. There's 0 executions. You can see that. So we have a NA, or not applicable at this point because it hasn't run yet. But we do have 2 executions for the get quote. We don't have any impacted executions. We have no latency violations and no availability errors. So it does seem like our transaction is executing pretty well. We can see some additional details here by looking at show locations. By clicking on the locations, we can now see the different places where this transaction is being run from, both Austin and Houston. Again, at this point, everything seems to be running very well. We don't have any violations or errors. If there were any problems or any SLA breaches, this is where we would see the summary of that information. We can also then specifically go and look at the executions that have run. So let's take the Austin location, and we can see that this particular transaction was run. This is the specific name of the transaction that's being executed, the latency that was reported back when the transaction ran, and any particular errors that might have occurred. In this particular case, there aren't any errors. Even from here, we can get some additional detail. We can look at the execution log itself, any custom timers or page timers that might have been set up, and any error messages. So essentially, that's the summary. When you have your transactions running, this is where you go to see the specific numeric tracking of the executions of those transactions. Generally, you get a summary of a current status in the main application status view window, but this is how you navigate to see the specific history of the transactions being executed. And that's all there is to it. Thank you for watching.